Good evening, you're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Joanna Ho. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. British government makes humiliating U-turn on controversial tax cut plan. Brazilians to decide in a runoff later this month who will be their next leader. And in Hong Kong, health experts believe it's time to drop COVID regulations. The British government was forced to make an embarrassing U-turn to its controversial tax plan, which mainly benefited the rich. Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng said it had become a distraction in the government's mission to fix the country. Winner Wong reports.
In a surprise statement today, British Finance Minister Kwasi Kwarteng announced the retraction of a highly contentious tax plan. "We get it, and we have listened," he said, in response to intense public outcry against the move. He added that it was clear the plan had become a distraction from the government's overriding mission to tackle challenges facing the country. Fellow Conservative Party members welcomed the move.
It was wrong timing on every level, and if you're going to make these changes, you need to set out the case first. You need to explain to people. You can't just jump straight to the solution sometimes, and you've got to do it at the right time when the economy can afford it as well.
If implemented, the plan would have slashed the rate for the nation's highest tax bracket from 45% to 40%. Against backlash, Kwarteng and Prime Minister Liz Truss insisted for days it would help with the nation's sluggish economy. But the announcement sent the pound plunging against the US dollar and wreaked havoc in the market.
Are you going to be able to survive this, Chancellor?
Is there a big question mark next to your judgment now, Chancellor?
Are you going to say sorry, Chancellor?
Now both Truss and Kwarteng are facing calls for them to resign, less than a month after they took on their new jobs. Winner Wong, HKIBC.
Back locally, COVID infections in Hong Kong have dropped for the fourth straight day. With the situation stabilizing, health experts are calling on more pandemic control measures to be dropped. Macy Mok reports.
Daily COVID infections have dropped for 4 consecutive days, with another 3,529 new cases. About 1/10, or 343, were imported. As Hong Kong approaches 1,000 days since tallying its first COVID patient, a well-known microbiologist believes it's time to roll back anti-epidemic measures. Speaking on radio, Ho Pak Leun felt that the contact tracing app Leave Home Safe has completed its historic mission and suggested it be dropped. He said the app was introduced when the city was aiming to achieve zero COVID infections, but that is no longer the case. With over 90% of the population double jabbed, Ho is confident there will not be a spike in hospitalizations. But the vaccine pass for restaurants and other premises should remain for now, he said. Respiratory medicine specialist Leung Chi-Chiu added there is room to further relax measures, such as the 4-person gathering ban.
The gathering ban is not useful at the moment because we are still keeping the masking requirements outdoor, and the mask will protect against most of the transmissions in the outdoor environment.
Leung described the coming 3 months as the golden window to adjust pandemic control measures, which he said had hurt the economy and people's livelihood. Maisie Mok, HKIBC.
There was frustration for commuters traveling on the MTR's Tuen Ma line this morning. A signaling glitch affected train services for an hour, with many late for work and school. It was a frustrating start to the week for tens of thousands of commuters relying on the MTR's Tuen Ma line. Services between Diamond Hill and City One was suspended shortly after 7:45 this morning, while trains operated at limited intervals along the line's remaining stations. But the impact was felt as far away as Tin Shui Wai, where hundreds of passengers were stranded on the platform at one time. With trains running at reduced speed and frequency, the railway network simply couldn't cope with the morning rush. Some commuters who ran out of patience abandoned the MTR and opted for other means of public transport, as well as free shuttle buses offered by the railway operator. Others chose to stay put, such as this woman who was stuck on a train in Taiwan, already an hour late for work. She explained it was hard to flag down a taxi anyway, even if she exited the station. This man tried to remain positive, saying he was used to service disruptions on the MTR. The railway operator said a faulty component in the signaling system was to blame, and services gradually resumed after 8:40 a.m. The fiasco came just one night after services on the Cheongkwano line were partially suspended for around 20 minutes, also due to a signaling glitch. A coroner's inquiry will begin next month for a man who stabbed a police officer before taking his own life. And in the district court, 3 men initially accused of rioting have pleaded guilty to a lesser charge. Joanna Ho reports.
3 men aged 17 to 27 have pleaded guilty at the district court to unlawful assembly and wounding over a street brawl in May 2020. The trio reached a deal with the prosecution to drop their riot charge. They were part of a gang who beat up a man in Causeway Bay, where thousands were on the streets to protest the national security law. The victim was attacked after an argument with some protesters. Sentencing will be passed down later this month, while a 4th defendant pleaded not guilty and will stand trial for rioting. A coroner's inquiry on a man who stabbed a police officer on July 1st last year will begin next month. Moments after the attack, 50-year-old Leung Kin Fai stabbed himself in the chest and passed away the same evening. Around a dozen witnesses will be summoned for the hearing, which is expected to last 6 days. The injured officer, as well as Police Commissioner Raymond Siu, are listed as stakeholders of the case. Over at West Kowloon Law Courts, a 68-year-old man has been acquitted of playing a musical instrument without a permit. Lee Jie-shin was arrested in April for performing the protest anthem Glory to Hong Kong with his erhu in Tongchong. The magistrate ruled that the prosecution was unable to prove that Lee had caused a disturbance. But it's only a minor victory for Lee, who is facing 2 other charges of the same nature. Joanna Ho, HKIBC.
Overseas again, after an initial round of voting, 2 arch rivals in Brazilian politics are set to go head-to-head in the upcoming runoff election for president. With both sides failing to achieve a majority this time, it's an indication the final race will be a tight one. Winnie Wong reports.
A former leader making a comeback after serving a prison sentence for corruption, or a populist incumbent. By the end of this month, Brazilians will have to decide which of the 2 will be their president for the next 4 years. The pair emerged as top 2 in initial polls over the weekend, with Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva gaining a slight edge over his opponent, current President Jair Bolsonaro. However, with neither managing to win a majority of at least 50%, the race is still on. Tensions are expected to remain high until the runoff in 4 weeks. Lula, who spent 580 days in jail before his case was annulled, was beaming as he spoke to his supporters following the results. This for us is merely extra time, he said, expressing confidence the runoff is only a slight delay to his eventual presidency. Bolsonaro, meanwhile, told his supporters he worries for Brazil's freedom if the country votes to return to left-leaning leadership. Winnie Wong, HKIBC.
Calls are mounting on Indonesia's police chief to resign after one of the world's worst stadium disasters. The country's security minister has vowed to investigate the tragedy, which saw 125 people killed and 323 injured, Sachin Kafi reports.
2 nights after the tragedy, Arema FC players returned to the stadium to pay their tributes to fans who perished. Many became emotional and broke down in tears. After initially reporting more than 170 fatalities, the local health authority adjusted the death toll to 125, while 323 were injured. Head coach Javier Roca said the result of one match was not worth paying for the lives of people and hoped there could be a fresh start for Indonesian football. Candlelight vigils were held across the capital Jakarta last night as the nation was trying to come to terms with one of the world's worst stadium disasters. With football being second nature to most Indonesians, everyone somehow felt connected to the mishap. The sport's world governing body FIFA also mourned the victims by lowering their flags at its Zurich headquarters.
This is a dark day for football and the tragedy beyond comprehension. Together with FIFA and the global football community, all our thoughts and prayers are with the victims, those who have been injured, together with the people of Indonesia, the Asian Football Confederation and the entire Indonesian football community at this difficult time.
But he did not comment on the possible breach of FIFA protocol by police officers who fired tear gas into the crowd, causing a stampede. While football-related violence is common in Indonesia, the scale of the latest disaster was unseen before. Many called for the removal of the country's police chief and rejected claims that officers only deployed tear gas as a last resort. Indonesian Security Minister Muhammad Mahfud announced that he will personally lead an independent fact-finding team. He aimed at completing the inquiry within 2 to 3 weeks. Sachin Katwe, HKIBC.
The world's largest electric car maker complained of logistical challenges after missing its delivery target for the third quarter. Tesla delivered a record 343,830 electric vehicles between July and September. While that was up from just 241,000 units from the same period last year, it was still 15,000 short of what analysts had expected. Another 22,000 vehicles were produced but not delivered. The company blamed surging vehicle transportation costs for hampering its delivery capacity. The figures were released just days after reports suggested it wants to produce nearly 500,000 vehicles in the fourth quarter. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index was down 143 points. To the top 10 active stocks, Tencent was down $2.60, Alibaba down 30 cents. AIA down 10 cents, HSBC down 90 cents. To the forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, euros at 7.66, pounds at 8.8, and Australian dollar at 5.06. Over to the UK market, FTSE 100 is down 27 points. On to the weather now. Staying fine and very hot tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 27 and 33 degrees. Expect a few showers later in the week, with a low of 25 degrees on Thursday. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Monday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Joanna Ho. Thanks for watching. Good night.